In a small town where everyone knows your name, the Maple Street Diner stands as a hub of community life, with its checkered tablecloths and the perpetual smell of coffee and fried eggs. On this particular day, the diner is bustling with the usual weekend crowd of families and friends, all enjoying their Saturday morning routine. Among the patrons is John, a solitary figure in a red MAGA hat, seated at a corner table. His presence, marked by the contentious symbol atop his head, casts a subtle shadow of tension across the room. John, a retired firefighter now working as a freelance mechanic, carries with him the rugged demeanor of someone who has spent a lifetime serving others, yet today, he finds himself the object of hushed whispers and wary glances. Despite the atmosphere, he remains focused on his breakfast, seemingly oblivious to the murmurs around him. His eyes, however, miss nothing, watching quietly from under the brim of his hat as children play and couples chat around him. The calm of the morning is shattered when a young boy at a nearby table begins to choke on his food. The boy's parents panic, their voices rising in a crescendo of fear as the mother cries out for help, her face etched with horror. The staff, frozen by indecision, fails to react swiftly. Without a moment's hesitation, John rises from his seat. His approach is calm and deliberate, the actions of a man who has faced crises before. As John reaches the boy, he quickly assesses the situation and performs the Heimlich maneuver with practiced ease. Within moments, the obstruction is cleared, and the boy gasps for air, his color returning as he begins to cry, overwhelmed but safe. The diner erupts into applause, gratitude replacing the earlier tension. John simply nods, checks to ensure the boy is indeed all right, and returns to his table, his breakfast now cold and forgotten. As he sits back down, the room's atmosphere shifts. Curiosity replaces suspicion, and the murmurs now carry a tone of respect and wonder. But little did they know, this encounter would change everything, the narrator hints, setting the stage for revelations that will challenge the preconceptions of everyone in the diner. As the applause dies down and conversations resume, a figure approaches John's table, a woman in her early 60s named Martha, who works as a waitress at the diner. Martha, with her warm smile and silver hair tied back in a practical bun, has been serving at the Maple Street Diner for over 2 decades. She carries a fresh cup of coffee as an offering to John, her approach gentle and unassuming. "Excuse me, sir," Martha begins, her voice steady despite the earlier commotion. "I saw what you did, and well, I thought you might like a fresh cup on the house. You deserve it." She places the coffee before him with a respectful nod, her eyes meeting his for a moment, eyes that have seen kindness and cruelty in equal measure, yet still choose to see the good in people. John, taken aback by the gesture, nods in thanks. "That's mighty kind of you, ma'am," he replies, his voice rough with emotion. "I just did what needed to be done." Martha smiles, pulling up a chair, uninvited yet somehow not unwelcome. "It's not every day we see acts of courage like that. Not everyone would have jumped in to help," she says, stirring her own coffee, a habit of comfort. As they talk, it becomes apparent that Martha, despite her humble job and simple attire, possesses a remarkable understanding of human nature. Her observations about the town and its people, sprinkled with wisdom and humor, reveal her unexpected depth. She talks about her years at the diner, the people she's met, and the small acts of kindness she's seen that often go unnoticed. John listens, genuinely intrigued. He had initially pegged her as just another part of the diner's backdrop, perhaps even indifferent. But Martha's resilience, her unassuming strength, and her gentle yet profound insights begin to reshape his perception not only of her, but of the community he thought he knew. The conversation is interrupted when a young man rushes into the diner, panic clear on his face. He's looking for help. His car broke down just a block away, and he's late for a job interview. Without a second thought, Martha turns to John. "You know a thing or two about cars, right? Maybe you could give him a hand." John, inspired by Martha's example of selfless service, agrees immediately. Together, they head outside, where John quickly assesses the young man's car. As he works on the engine, Martha stands by, offering words of encouragement to the anxious young man, her presence a calming force in the flurry of his distress. By the time the car sputters to life, thanks to John's skilled hands, the young man's relief is palpable. He thanks them profusely, his gratitude extending beyond the fixed car to the kindness of strangers when he needed it most. As he drives away, John and Martha return to the diner, their bond solidified by the shared experience of helping another in need. Back inside, as they settle into their seats once more, John reflects on the morning's events. Martha, with her simple acts of kindness, has shown him that heroism isn't always dramatic or recognized. It's often quiet, woven into the fabric of everyday life. This unexpected helper, with her resilience and humble grace, has not only assisted in a crisis, but has also subtly shifted John's worldview, reminding him of the power of community and the unseen depths in those we often overlook. As John and Martha settled back into the rhythm of the diner, the morning's heroics lingered in the air, mingling with the scent of brewing coffee and toasted bread. John, usually a solitary figure, found himself the center of a warmth he had seldom felt in recent years. The red MAGA hat on his table, once a barrier, now seemed less significant, overshadowed by his actions. However, the internal conflict within him grew. John struggled with a mix of pride and guilt. Pride, because his instincts as a rescuer had not faded with his retirement. Guilt, because he knew that many in the diner had judged him solely by his hat before his actions proved them wrong. He wondered about the many times he, too, had judged others without knowing their full stories. Martha's simple, earnest interaction had not only offered him gratitude, but had also silently questioned his long-held views on the people in his town. The external conflicts were no less challenging. The town, like many across the country, was split along political and social lines, often mirroring the divisions broadcasted daily on the news. John's hat represented more than personal belief. It symbolized a rift that had widened over years, affecting friendships and family ties. His heroic act in the diner, however, presented a paradox to the onlookers, challenging the stereotypes associated with his political stance. As the day progressed, a local reporter, who frequented the diner for its home-style meals and local news scoops, approached John. Intrigued by the morning's event and its potential story, she asked if he would be willing to share his experience for the local paper. The request sparked a moment of tension for John. He was wary of the media, concerned about being portrayed as a stereotype or used as a political pawn. Martha, sensing his hesitation, offered a gentle nudge. "John, maybe it's a chance to show that there's more that brings us together than we think," she suggested. Her words, meant to be encouraging, only deepened John's internal struggle. He was proud of his beliefs, yet he also recognized the need for a bridge in the growing divide. Martha's actions, full of unbiased kindness, highlighted a path of unity that John found hard to navigate but impossible to ignore. Deciding to trust Martha's judgment, John agreed to the interview but insisted that it focus on the act of kindness rather than the political implications. The interview went smoothly, with John articulating his belief in community and the importance of looking beyond appearances. However, the article, when published, carried a headline that sensationalized his political identity over the act itself, reigniting the conflict and forcing John to confront the consequences of public perception. The publication of the article brought mixed reactions. While many praised John's heroism, others couldn't see past the hat. Conversations in the diner and online became heated, with the community polarized once again. John felt a deepening sense of isolation from parts of the community he had served for so long, even as others reached out with newfound respect. Martha remained a constant, her presence a reassuring force. She encouraged John to engage in community discussions, facilitating dialogues that allowed different viewpoints to be shared. These discussions were not easy. John faced resistance and hostility, but also moments of understanding and tentative reconciliation. Through these experiences, John realized the weight of his own assumptions and the power of a simple act of kindness. Martha's belief in community and her ability to see beyond labels had challenged him to reassess his own identity and his role within the town. The conflict had not only been external, but deeply internal, forcing John to reconcile his pride with his desire for a united community. This realization was both painful and enlightening for John. It underscored the complexity of his own feelings and the broader social challenges faced by his community. Through Martha's influence, John began to appreciate the nuances of human character and the potential for change in every interaction, however small. After weeks of reflection and discourse stirred by the article, John began to perceive his own views and the views of his community through a new lens. The mixed reactions to his act of heroism and the discussions that followed had been a tumultuous journey, but they paved the way for a profound transformation in John. Martha's unwavering support and her ability to foster understanding had been instrumental in this change. She had not only extended kindness, but had also encouraged a space for open dialogue, challenging John to engage more deeply with his community. Realizing the true value of Martha's actions, John decided to give back and reinforce the bridges she had helped strengthen between him and the rest of the town. Inspired by their conversations and the recent upheavals, he proposed a community initiative aimed at promoting unity and understanding through shared community service projects. With Martha's encouragement, John reached out to various community leaders, including those he had previously avoided due to political differences, to help organize the event. The project they chose was the renovation of the local community center, a place that had once thrived as a hub for all townsfolk, but had fallen into disrepair and disuse as the town grew divided. The initiative was met with enthusiasm and skepticism in equal measure, but as the project commenced, people from different backgrounds began working side by side, painting walls, repairing old furniture, and sharing stories. John, who had once felt isolated in his own town, found himself laughing and collaborating with neighbors he had only nodded to in passing for years. Martha, ever the pillar of the community, organized food drives and cooked meals to keep the volunteers fed during their work. Her kitchen became a place of congregation, where people not only shared meals but also ideas and perspectives. The simple act of breaking bread together, facilitated by Martha's hands, became a ritual that softened hearts and opened minds. As the community center neared completion, John organized a grand reopening, inviting the entire town. During the event, he took the stage to speak, a moment he had dreaded but now welcomed as a chance to share his transformation. "We've all been part of this building's revival," John addressed the crowd, his voice steady and sincere. "But it's not just about the bricks and paint. It's about restoring the heart of our community. This project has shown me that more unites us than divides us, and that every hand, regardless of the color of the hat it wears, can help build something good." The crowd responded with a rousing applause, many moved by John's words and the evident change in his demeanor. Martha stood by his side, her eyes brimming with pride. The project had not only transformed the community center, but had also transformed John and those who participated. Relationships were mended, and new friendships were forged. The community center became a symbol of unity and a testament to the power of collective effort and mutual respect. As the evening wound down, John and Martha walked through the newly renovated halls, their steps echoing softly. "You changed this town, John. But most importantly, you allowed it to change you," Martha said quietly. John nodded, looking around at the laughter and conversation filling the room. "No, Martha," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "It was you who taught us all what it means to truly see each other. Thank you for opening my eyes." The transformation was complete, not just in the physical space around them, but in the hearts of those who had come together. The moral takeaway was clear. Kindness, empathy, and the willingness to understand can rebuild communities and heal divisions. This was the legacy that John and Martha hoped would continue to grow, long after the paint had dried and the volunteers had gone home. As the evening stars began to twinkle in the twilight sky, the newly reopened community center buzzed with a renewed spirit of camaraderie and hope. Inside, the laughter and chatter of a united community filled the air, a stark contrast to the silence and division that had once defined it. John stood by the entrance, watching as children played, elders chatted, and neighbors who had once turned their backs on each other now shared stories and smiles. Martha joined him, her presence as comforting as the warm glow from the hanging lights above. Together, they reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. "Look at what we've accomplished, John," Martha said, her voice filled with a mix of awe and satisfaction. "Not just the building, but the bridges we've built within it." John nodded, his eyes reflecting the soft light and the deep change within. "I used to think I knew exactly what this town needed and what I stood for. But this," he gestured to the bustling room, "this taught me that what we really need is to listen, to open our hearts, and to pull together, not apart." Martha smiled, her wise eyes twinkling. "It's funny how sometimes all it takes is a little push to open our eyes. And once they're open, there's no telling the good we can do together." The music in the background softened, and a moment of poignant silence fell between them, emphasizing the weight of their words. "I guess it's true what they say," John continued, "about kindness and humility. They aren't just virtues to admire from a distance. They're forces, powerful enough to change any story, including ours." As guests continued to arrive and enjoy the evening, the scene was one of transformation, not just of the place, but of the people within it. The community center, once a forgotten structure, now stood as a beacon of human connection and mutual respect. In his closing remarks to the gathering, John shared a simple but powerful message: let this center be more than just a place. Let it be a reminder of what we achieve when we look past our differences and lean into our kindness. Let's keep building, not just buildings, but bonds. The applause that followed was not just for the words spoken or the project completed, but for the shared journey of growth and understanding. As the event drew to a close, people lingered, reluctant to leave the warmth of newfound unity. The story of John and Martha and the community center's revival would be remembered not as a tale of conflict, but as a testament to the power of empathy and the enduring strength of a community that chose to unite. The moral was clear: in a world quick to judge and slow to understand, kindness remains the most transformative force we have.